Um, we have two, let me see here. We have, I guess they're proclamations, a proclamation and a presentation. So we'll do the proclamation first, since that will be really quick and we'll get it out of the way. Let me pull up my agenda for the proclamation. All right, proclamation declaring Pikes Peak Small Business Week, June 7th through the 10th, 2021. That's this week. We just have it says a Pikes Peak Small Business Week. Is anybody here to speak on that? Nope. Okay. So I'll just read through the proclamation real quick, and we'll go ahead and accept that into the record. And we accept it? We just read it. Sylvia, we just read it in and we're good. Okay. Whereas the city of Fountain, Colorado supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And whereas the city of Fountain, Colorado is a small business supporting sponsor of Pikes Peak Small Business Week hosted by the SBDC. And whereas the city of Fountain, Colorado distributed $385,000 in grant support funding to 46 eligible small businesses through the CARES Act during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the United States Small Business Administration indicates there are approximately 30.7 million small businesses, which represent 99.7% of all firms with paid employees in the United States. And whereas the city of Fountain, Colorado encourages Shop Local campaign in the community and endorses Small Business Saturday held the weekend after Thanksgiving on behalf of small businesses. And whereas 69% of small business owners have proclaimed local community support is critical, and Small Business Saturday contributes significantly to their holiday sales each year. And whereas the city of Fountain, Colorado celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community on a daily basis. And therefore, the city of Fountain City Council hereby proclaims June 7th through the 10th, 2021 as Pikes Peak Small Business Week, done this 8th day of June, 2021. And I will assign that and get it off to Ms. Huffman as well. So thank you for that. Our next item is our Girl of the West and aid to the Girl of the West, Pikes Peak Range Riders and Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo. We missed out on this one last year because of COVID and everything, so we're excited to have you guys back. So please come forward. And
hello, and thanks for having us today. My name is Sharon Iverson, and I volunteer for the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo as the assistant to the director of the Girl of the West program. The Girls of the West story began in 1922 as about two young rodeo ambassadors and how they helped promote the Western way of life and the Western type American girl at our Pikes Peak or Bus Rodeo and other events. The Girl of the West is a 2-summer commitment, with each girl chosen as the aide for the first summer, and then she becomes the Girl of the West the second summer. The aide is selected from a competition comprised of horsemanship, speech, interviews, and appearance. We have posters that we would appreciate you putting up in your businesses, as well as rodeo flyers in the back. I'd like to present Georgia Sturmonis. She is the 2021 Girl of the West. She's a 19-year-old daughter of George and Jenny Sturmonis of Larkspur. And since the age of 10, she has been involved in the equine world, competing in 4-H, Western and English pleasure, working ranch horse, and gymkhana. She has served as an ambassador for other Colorado rodeos. Georgia is a recent graduate from Arapahoe Community College with a communications degree. She plans on continuing her education in the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. Her brother is currently serving as a U.S. Army Airborne Ranger. Georgia rides a paint mare named Josie. Please enjoy her speech.
all right, thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Georgia, and I am the Girl of the West. I serve as the proud ambassador for the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo, and I have to tell you, I cannot wait for this year's rodeo. The Pikes Peak Bus is a very special rodeo for me and my family. We love all that it stands for: our Western heritage, the sport of rodeo, and especially giving back to the local military and their families. My brother is currently serving, so this is all very near and dear to my heart. I am proud to be a part of this rodeo family and the beautiful community that we live in. I am proud of an event that brings people from all over together to celebrate all that is good about our country, the growing sport of rodeo, and to honor the sacrifice made by those who serve this great nation. So I am more than excited to tell you that Championship Rodeo is coming to town this summer, July 14th through the 17th at the Norris Penrose Event Center. The Pikes Peak Bus is pro rodeo at its finest and one of the most beautiful venues there is to enjoy the sport. As a PRCA Pro Tour Rodeo, you will see the best athletes competing in the 7 events, which include bareback, steer wrestling, team roping, saddle bronc, tie-down roping, barrel racing, and bull riding. There's also fan favorite mutton bustin', where a trophy and a medal are awarded to the winner at each performance. And these trophies are even as tall as some of the kiddos. You won't want to miss our specialty act, professional rodeo entertainer Amanda Payne, in her Longhorn Steer Wranglin' extravaganza. Tickets for the 80th Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo are on sale now, so buy yours early and online at pikespeakerbus.org to choose the best seats in the house. The rodeo runs Wednesday, July 14th through Saturday, July 17th, with performances at 7 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday evenings and a Saturday matinee at 12:30 p.m. The Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo is one for the true fan, the first timer, and everyone in between. There's lots going on before the rodeo too. The grounds will open at 4 p.m. before our evening performances and at 10 a.m. before the Saturday matinee. Come early, avoid the traffic, and enjoy all the family-friendly pre-show fun in our fan zone. There will be mutton bustin' tryouts, mechanical bull riding, pony rides, dance lessons, a petting zoo, and you can grab a bite to eat in our feedlot tent. And parking is free. Our local military are honored at each performance. Fort Carson on Wednesday evening, first responders and missile defense on Thursday evening, Space Night on Friday evening, the United States Air Force Academy at our Saturday matinee, and NORAD US Northcom on Saturday evening. The Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo has proudly been supporting local military and their families since 1946. All of our performances will start with the Pikes Peak Range Rider Pivots and the Pikes Peak Rangerettes drill teams, followed by the Fort Carson Mounted Color Guard. After the rodeo, stick around for autographs from the contestants, the Rangerettes, and the Girl of the West. That's me. Then head on over to the Coors Roadhouse Saloon for live music, dancing, and cold Coors. I'm counting on each of you being at this year's rodeo. The dates again are Wednesday, July 14th through Saturday, July 17th. Save time and purchase your tickets online. Discounts are available for military, first responders, groups, and children 12 and under. You can find all this information and much more about our rodeo at our website, pikespeakerbus.org. Be sure to wave to me when you see our awesome pink Perkins Ram truck all over town as I head out to represent our rodeo. Please also plan to join us bright and early on June 16th from 5:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. for the annual Colorado Springs Western Street Breakfast and the official send-off of the Pikes Peak Range Riders annual ride. Enjoy a $5 breakfast prepared and served by active duty military volunteers. Now you know why I am so passionate about this rodeo and everything that it stands for. So I want to see all of you at the 80th Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo, July 14th through the 17th at the Norris Penrose Event Center in Colorado Springs.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Chief, you're former airborne, aren't you?
Yes, former airborne, but my real question is, Sam Geek and I really wanted to try out for mutton busting, so maybe you can give us some more information.
Find some bigger sheep.
I'm gonna need some old sheep, tired sheep, and big sheep. Totally, sounds good. I'll give you one. Thank you.
All right, awesome. That's great. When is the breakfast again?
Oh, June 16th. It starts at 5:30 a.m. and goes through 9 a.m.
That's early. Well, it's breakfast.
And we also have brochures about the breakfast in the back with all the activities that'll be going on and everything that you can.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And if you guys need any of that information, we have that back there. And I think that's it for our presentations and things. We will be back at 6 o'clock for our regular meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. are we ready?
I believe so.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It's June 8th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. We are here for our 1st of June meeting, I guess. I can't even think right now. I'll call the meeting to order, hopefully, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Ortega,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lauer,
Here.
Councilmember Thompson,
Here.
Councilmember Estes,
Here.
Councilmember Applegate,
Here.
Councilmember Geek,
Here.
Councilmember Duncan,
Here.
6 members physically present, Councilmember Thompson present via telephone.
Okay, thank you. We'll move right into presentations. We have no presentations tonight. We do have one appointment of a regular member to the Park and Rec Advisory Board. Is that, Mrs. Huffman, you can take that?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. We do have one current vacancy as one of our members' term has expired actually today. We do have a alternate position that has been filled by Mr. Kinkinnon, and he would like to fill the regular seat position. Mr. Kinkinnon has been serving on the board since August of 2020. He desires that regular position for a 4-year term.
Okay. That seems easy enough. Any questions from anybody on this? Okay, then we could go ahead and make an appointment.
Yeah, it's kind of down there, but then there's 2 other ones below it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Was there already a motion?
No, not yet.
Huh?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. Geek has a motion, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of Mr., I lost the name.
Kinkinnon.
Buchanan?
Okay, please, Ms. Huffman with the call. Or please vote, everybody. Sorry.
Councilmember Thompson, how do you
Aye.
vote?
Aye.
7 yes, motion carried.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, item number 5, City Council agenda requests and announcements. Start with
Thank you
Ms.
for trying.
Duncan.
I don't have anything today.
Okay, Mr. Geek,
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Applegate,
Nothing tonight.
Ms. Estes.
I just want to give a big shout out to Officer Don Kling for being selected the Officer of the Year for the Colorado Police Chiefs Association. That is such a fantastic honor. He's the first SRO to have been awarded this honor. And I just think that says a heck of a lot about the Fountain Police Department. So kudos to Officer Don.
Thank you. I found out after I made the announcement on our social media, just because we were so excited about it, that I was supposed to keep that top secret and not tell anybody until the 24th of June. So if everyone could just let that kind of roll out for a little while, and, you know, it is what it is. No one told me. So, you know, I hope I'm not on the naughty list, but thank you. And, you know, Don has done so much and truly deserves that award. I couldn't think of a better person to get it. Thank you.
SRO is
It's just, I think it's just a wonderful honor and
It's great stuff.
I just appreciate it. And many thanks to Todd for helping me with some carport issues. And he's just a fantastic resource. And I'm just proud to have him here as the city. So thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, Tamara just stole my thunder. If someone on our police force was going to be given an award on or about June 24th,
Fair enough.
having seen him in action for several years, that would be beyond well-deserved.
Yes, sir.
I have seen a level of caring from that police officer towards kids that is just unbelievable. And again, that speaks to the quality of people that are in our PD. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Thompson.
Sorry, had to find the unmute button. No, just congratulations to the officer for the award, and I'll catch up.
Okay, and I don't think I have anything tonight that has come up other than I'm glad we finally got to, I'm glad we got to do a Memorial Day service this year. A few people attended. It was nice to have everyone out there and commemorate those who lost their lives for the country. So hopefully, I think we're on that track to getting back to normal again. So thank you for everyone for coming to that. Okay, we're going to keep moving forward on to public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on the agenda. We may not be able to provide immediate answer, but we'll direct staff to follow up out of respect for the council and others in attendance. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I got a few cards tonight. I have 3 and they all are about the same subject. So I don't know if you all want to come up separately or if you want to come up together, however you want to do that. Okay, we have Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Ms. Chimino.
We can talk. Well, our concern is the fireworks this year, because last year it went, I think, way beyond and out of control. And Penny and I, we have 2 very old horses that are suffering from PTSD from the hailstorms that we had. And her property is located in the middle of Fountain. And we are concerned about fireworks coming down and maybe igniting the field, the barn. And yeah, that's our great concern. And we were wondering what the city can possibly do this year to get a better control on the out of control situation last year. It was 6 hours worth of firing rockets in the sky. Mortars. Yeah. And it was just horrifying. The whole, our streets were covered in smoke for hours. It looked like a war zone. And
yeah, I ran up to the property with a fire extinguisher. It was that bad because I was afraid it was going to go up in flames. That field was so dry when I walked on it, it crackled under my feet. And when I saw everything going on up there, I grabbed the fire extinguisher and I went up there and I hung out for the whole time because I was afraid that field was going to catch on fire. And there's several fields like that in that area that are not maintained, that are not mowed. I do my best to keep mine mowed so that at least it's short. I try to, there's houses on both sides of this property. Honestly, I'm concerned for the property owners on the houses on each side too. And so this year I contacted Tamara about a month ago about this because last year the same people that were shooting off fireworks said, well, just wait till next year. It's going to be double. If you liked this year, just wait. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
right.
Miss
So
Penny?
do that. We're kind of terrified.
Ma'am?
I know the city does have their rules and
So we have good news.
yeah.
We have good news. So we heard you. We've talked to Miss Tamara. We talked to Scott. So the fire chief met with the fire marshal today. We have decided to make fireworks illegal in our community, which is going to replicate what is going on in El Paso County and Colorado Springs. All fireworks. So so that's going to be the law. Now let me give you some tempered and actual reality. We're still going to have fireworks. We've had it 2 of the years, I think we all know this, 2 of the years that I've been here since the chief, where we outlawed fireworks in my neighborhood. It looked like World War III and is exactly what you described. So
normally, I mean, yeah, it would be irritating, but the fire danger is really
sure.
what.
And we've seen how that's happened in Colorado. Like we've all seen that. I think that's what's changed over the years. So
Call my insurance company and say, should my place?
yeah.
Will you guys cover it or will you not? Because these are not legal fireworks. We have a loophole.
So our plan is to step up enforcement by additional patrols. We're going to partner the fire marshal and a police officer together. All the fire department will be out deployed. Police officers will be staffed with extra people. And we will cite and we will confiscate fireworks, especially if they're the ones that get out of hand, right? That's going to be a tempered thing because we couldn't arrest everybody in the city that night because we'd wake up that night and they would absolutely hate the police department. And we've always tried to maintain a good relationship with our citizens. It's important to us. So,
I mean, on social media, they're saying, you know, the police didn't care last year.
Right.
This year, don't worry about it. Kind of thing. And so that's kind of why I got started on this a month ago because I thought, you know, this has to be nipped in the bud, so to speak, and kind of dealt with a heavy hand. And I think you're gonna have to get the word out there that it will be strictly enforced this
Yeah.
year, because that is not the mentality right
It was literally, that decision today was made by the fire chief in consultation. And, that's what we were presenting to city council, and that's the direction we're heading, because we just felt like it was prudent.
My
From,
concern is that we call into Colorado Springs, and I called in last year, and the first time I called, she said, well, you need addresses and descriptions. So I went and I got 2 addresses and 2 descriptions. I called back and she said, oh, we need names also. And I said, I'm not walking up to these people and saying, hey, I'm gonna turn you in, can I get your name? So right then and there,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't even think the call even came to Fountain, that I was calling in saying, hey, this is a problem, this is where they're at, because she said, you don't have names, I'm not.
yeah.
So we need to maybe kind of think about that too. Maybe you do have people in Fountain calling in, but it's not actually getting to you.
We're going to have them out forward deployed all over the city. So no one's going to be in the station that night. No fire trucks are going to be in the station that night. We'll have extra staffing on, and they're all going to be deployed out looking and relaying that information the best we can.
Awesome.
And we will confiscate, and we will cite for the most egregious violations, or especially if we told someone to knock it off and they do it again. And we will provide that report to city council.
That's awesome.
Appreciate it.
If there's anything we can do to help, of course,
Good.
I'm gonna be stuck there with a fire extinguisher. I already know that, but.
We're going to try and help you. James, anything?
Thank you.
We're also banning the sale of fireworks in the city this year as well, so that should help as well. And then I just want to also state that with our police and fire units combined, we probably have no more than 10 units that can handle calls. And so it's really difficult to get all over the city with 10 units, but we will definitely do our best.
This comes up every year, and everyone gets mad. And the fact of the matter is the ones that are going off in the air, they're totally illegal in the state of Colorado. And so they're driving up to Wyoming and buying as much as they can, and then bringing them back down. And so, yeah, we'll have people out. We'll have a message of enforcement, and hopefully it'll squash some of it. But I heard fireworks 2 nights ago. I was watching them from my back deck. So
They're getting ready. Social media, we'll get it advertised. We'll get it out.
Can you do even like the marquees in front of the fire station?
Yes. Yep. And we'll get right here with the paper too, and make sure we try to. And she's giving me a weird look. Like, I don't know. We'll get the word out on all those.
Okay. All right. Next card is Ms. Beckett.
Thank you very much. I'm Audrey Beckett, and what I wanted to talk about was water taps. And I just sent a letter late this afternoon to Scott, Todd, and Dan, so they haven't seen it yet. And I'll just take my time, a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But I realize this shortage of water taps came up quickly, and I know that it's going to be a problem that will come to you guys to be part of the decision-making of how it's going to be handled. And so I wanted an opportunity to talk to you. And what I'm asking is if there could be a separate queue or list for residential projects that are waiting for water taps, and a separate one for commercial. And the reason on that being that commercial has a longer window of development. They spend a lot more money on development because the project is bigger instead of one house. So you're looking at $40,000 to $60,000, just basic kind of stuff to be able to turn the report in. Often it's $80,000 by the time you're able to put it together to turn it into the city of Fountain. So I have 2 projects right now. One is in escrow and one is just coming in, where we're going to ask for 1 water tap on each. And those projects will be close to $6 million, which will give a lot of tax revenue. When you look at, many things you're looking at when you make this kind of a decision, but we want commercial to continue in the city. And we don't want it to get backlogged behind huge residential projects, because you have lots of those on the books. And the commercial will bring needed services. It'll also bring the possibility of jobs depending on the particular commercial development. You will get, I calculated, for example, property tax rates, and residential on a $500,000 home, you're looking at about, let me see, because I figured $1,897 of property taxes. On a $6 million commercial development, you'll make $94,000 $311 of total tax revenue, of which a portion would come to this city, a portion come to your schools, a portion come to the sanitation district. So it's a huge difference in terms of the amount of money into the city. Plus you'll get a lot of sales tax on building the building. And then you'll also have less services because they don't use schools and they don't use parks. And we want our businesses to continue to grow. So I'm just asking that you would consider something. I don't know what the best answer is, but something that you would put residential separate. Maybe you'd set up a reservation system for water taps. And once they'd gone through the development review process, then they would be, you could give up, then everything was met, you know, all the zoning and setbacks and the city liked the project. Then we could pay a water reservation fee while we're developing all of the paperwork that needs to be turned in. And then that would be good for 12 months or 18 months. And then as soon as it was approved, we would purchase the water tap. I see my time is up.
Okay.
So if there are any questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'll sit down.
Yeah, no, this whole region's in a state of flux with all that. And yeah, I know they're bringing up a plan that we need to look at and figure out how that's going to be done. And,
I just wanted to have some
you know, commercial it seems to be pretty easy to me, but because you're not asking for 3,000 taps as opposed to 1 or 2. So, you know, yeah, it was just kind of depends and how that plan comes forward. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, so Audrey, we'll sit down with you individually. We're sitting down with every, whether it be a large development, small development, and talk to you about your 2. Yours are considered infill, so a little bit different. Some of the ideas and concepts you talked about, that will be discussed with the council when the water master plan is completed. Then we'll figure out those type of things, but we don't want you to wait for that. So I'll respond to yours and we'll set up a meeting. We'll sit down and discuss yours.
Sure. Okay. All right. Okay. I see no other public. Okay, we will move on to our consent agenda. We have items A, B, C, D. Is that it? All items listed under the consent agenda considered to be routine will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen requests, in which case the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of the council. With that, what would council like to do with our consent agenda? Ms. Estes
I move to approve the consent agenda.
and Mr. Geek.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of those items. Please vote.
Councilmember Thompson, how do you vote?
Aye.
7 yes, motion carried.
All right. Let's see, we are on to 9 new business. No items were removed from consent, so we'll get right into the meat of our discussion tonight. It's our budget work session. Mr. Lewis, or is it Scott starting us off?
Yep, I'll be doing it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This is, are you, okay, she's pulling it up right now. This is our first sort of checkpoint with the City Council as we start working to prepare the budget for 2022. If the council recalls, when we were developing 2021, we do a biennial review of the budget. So we actually worked with the council, and the council had budget meetings and really developed the budget for both 2021 and 2022. And so this is really just a checkpoint to touch base with the council, give you sort of a status update of where we are, particularly with the fund balance, and then just discuss if there's anything in particular the council wants to modify, if there's certain priorities the council wants to be thinking about. Now, at the same time, just recognize that we're also at the end of this current strategic planning cycle, and we're working on planning for our next strategic planning cycle. And so as the council thinks about priorities, just keep those in mind and how you want to work those in the budget. And we'll be coming back again to the council in August. And at that point, we'll be syncing up with the strategic plan, the strategic planning process, and we can sync up with some of your priorities for this budget as well. All that being said, let's see, why don't we go on to the next slide there, Lisa, thank you. Oh, okay. That is right. What you have right there is the draft budget calendar. You guys should all have received a paper copy of that. That lays out the different dates that we're working on. And so take a look at that. if there's any concerns, red flags that come up, you please just reach out to us and, we can see what we can do to modify and work on that. Okay, next slide, Lisa. This is just a tentative overview of the discussion tonight, just to give you a high level view of what we're talking about, what we'll be talking about. I'm going to really get into the general fund and the fund balance overview, and we're going to be hitting that first off. And then I want to talk about the American Recovery Plan Act dollars that will be allocated to the city by the federal government. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some recommendations around those funds. Dan Blankenship will get into the water and electric fund, do an overview of that. John Lewis will then go through the miscellaneous funds, give an overview of that. And then there'll just be, we planned some time for just an open conversation from the council. If there's any feedback, input you want to give us as we sort of start working on developing these budgets. And remember, at this point, we're still working on projecting revenues. I mean, just a whole bunch of work that's just starting now. So just wanted to give you an idea there. Okay, next slide, Lisa. So the first thing we want to look at is our general fund budget. And as you can see, we have a proposed budget right there that identified for 2022. That was a budget that the council developed when we were working on 2021. Those are the revenues. And I just want to highlight that if you recall, these are the budgeted revenues that we expected to see looking forward in time. The reality, however, is that we'll see some tax revenues that will likely be significantly higher. For example, just with sales taxes year to date, we planned on a 3% increase, and we're already looking at a 16.8% increase. Now, that also has implications for Tabor. So that's just a side note to keep in mind. If those revenues keep coming in higher, there's also potential for a future Tabor refund. And so right now, the projections are that we were really good kind of on the bubble this upcoming year. But again, if those revenues continue to come in higher than projected, that's just something that we're going to want to keep on our radars for that. Okay, go to the next page there, Lisa. This is just a summary of the different expenditures that were laid out for the general fund. The one thing I want to highlight, there really have been no changes proposed by staff members, by any of the departments. However, down under transfers out, that includes transfers out, and John will hit on these when we get the miscellaneous funds. That includes transfers out to like the ambulance fund. And that's one area that the ambulance fund, the fire department's really been working hard to minimize the subsidy there. So that transfer will actually decrease by about $127,000. So, or excuse me, $126,000. And I'll highlight that again on the next page. But that amount that you can see right there is a drawdown to the general fund now of about $30,000 roughly. Next page, Lisa. All right, so when you look at the general fund budget as far as the planning goes and the unassigned fund balance, as it began there at $7.8 million, that was 33% including the Tabor. If you recall, the council set a goal of 20%, which includes the 3% Tabor emergency set aside that we need to do, that we need to restrict. So then we showed in there we've shown the carry forward from 2020 and the two different supplementals that had come before the council. We've shown the decrease in the ambulance fund, and that's the $126,000 change. That's the decrease in the transfer out of the general fund. And then the decrease per the initial 21 and 22 budgets. So if you look at the unassigned fund balance of 5.3 million, approximately, it's 5,296,000, that represents a 23.4% unrestricted fund balance, which equates to about a 892,000. We'll just round it off at 900,000 in excess of the council's 20% goal. So those are funds that the council, as you look at your priorities, those are funds that council may choose to spend on various things. Now, I want to say those aren't ongoing revenues. You got to remember, think of it almost as your savings account. Those are one-time funds that are available for various projects. They could be capital projects, it could be capital equipment, those kind of things. I mean, you could theoretically use them on ongoing expenditures, but that's just something you really want to be cautious about. Every year we talk about the council's goal, the 20%, and then the amount above that. And so that gives you at least a little bit of an idea of some potential funds that will be available for the city council. Okay, now I want to highlight, and you can leave it right here, Lisa. Is that about, okay, yep, you got highlight a couple things. Number one, we never include any potential merit increases for city staff when we're developing the budget. That we never want to be presumptive on that. And so we leave that open for the council to decide what the council wants to do. And so any of the budgets you see before you don't include any new projects, any new personnel, or any merit increases for your existing personnel. I want to give you a little bit of an idea though, what those kind of decisions would mean for the budget. So if you look at merit increases, for every 1%, and this is for the entire budget, not just the general fund, but for every 1% of increase of a merit increase, that if the council wanted to plug something like that in, it would be about $182,000 cost overall. Of that, $102,000 would be the general fund. So that's for every 1%. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? And that's the fully burdened cost. That's, I mean, everything that goes with that.
Can you repeat those numbers again?
Yeah, you bet. For every 1%, and this is for the entire budget, everything would be $182,000. Just the general fund piece of that would be 102. So I just want to give that to the council for a little bit of perspective if the council just wants to think about something like that. The other thing I want to make sure I reiterate is, although we haven't included any personnel, we always ask the department heads as we're going through the budget, hey, if there are any personnel needs you have, please let us know so we can pass them on to the council. This budget doesn't recommend any personnel additions, again, because if you remember going back a couple slides, we're right at the cusp of the revenues equaling the expenditure. So we just need to be really careful with the budget dollars. But I'm going to give you an idea of some of the positions that were, and they're not many positions that were requested overall. We have an engineering inspector, a code enforcement officer that's moving an existing part-time to full-time, a benefit and leave specialist for human resources, and then a police officer, entry-level police officer position. So 4 positions. If those were actually included in the budget, the fully burdened cost to the general fund would be about $207,000. Well, rounded up to $208,000. Okay. To the electric fund, it would be about $50,000, and to the water fund would be about $68,000. So when you look at the grand total for those being a little over $300,000, again, just trying to keep a really lean budget, we didn't feel like we could really recommend any additions. Of course, we want to share with you some of the personnel needs for 2022, but just recognize that we don't really have the funding. We can't recommend addition to any of those bodies right now. Now, while I'm at that point, I do want to mention that if there are positions, for example, that come in with revenues that do support that position, then that's something that we would bring to the council. And so at the next council meeting, we will likely be coming to the city council for potential requests for additional police officer positions funded through a grant that I call it a grant. I don't think it's an actual grant. Excuse me? Reimbursement. It's a cost reimbursement for Medicare, Medicaid payments of about $580,000. It's actually $620,000, but then net of the company that we use to go through, audit those payments, and then submit the request to the federal government. But we will have those additional revenues coming in later on this year. And so those are funds that could be used to, again, hire public safety personnel, because those are going to be ongoing revenues. Chief Heber will come back to the next council meeting and he'll dig into all the details of that with you. But those are ones that, you know, if it's something that is supported, the IGZA, for example, the IGZA person that we have being supported by the Intergovernmental Service Agreement with Fort Carson, again, being funded through those programs. Those are the kind of things that we're going to bring to you, but we're not as comfortable bringing positions that don't really have funding associated with them. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you as well. Okay, now, if we can, Lisa, can you pull up the ARPA document? Thank you. Well, first of all, let me just pause there while she's pulling it up. Are there any questions about that information right there? It's food for thought. It's a checkpoint. We're not making really any modifications to the budget other than reducing that ambulance transfer out. But it is something that at least gives you an inkling of, look, is there something that the council wants to look at as a priority that was different than the council did when you developed it? Again, we'll be coming through this process of the strategic plan priorities. So you almost don't want to get those two things too out of sync, right? You want to have those conversations. That strategic planning process will be in public meetings and getting public feedback to try to help you as you develop your priorities. So, but I just wanted to get it out there as this, again, as a checkpoint. So you can see those are some funds that we have now, and those potentially would be funds likely higher than the 900,000 we're showing now because of the additional revenues coming in. But that's just information I want to share with you. Any questions on that so far?
Ms. Duncan?
Okay, on the first slide, Scott, that we had, that had the breakdown itemized on the street, we had a decrease of what was projected versus that's this one.
So line one.
This one. No,
Yep.
go back.
The next one down, Lisa, it'll be the expenditure side. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
On the expenditure side, the first column is the original budget for 2021. And then the second column was the budget that was developed by the council for 2022. And so, yeah, you'd see that went from 1.9 million approximately down to 1.8.
Is the question, why is there the decrease to 2022? Because you remember there was an additional 250,000 that was allocated to streets in the very last budget meeting. It was in fact, the only change from the initial proposed budget to the final. And that was primarily to do to increase some of the street resurfacing and also to do a study on the streets. Yeah, pavement study in 2021. And that was a one-time expenditure that won't be continued in 2022 unless, you ask for some of that to be continued.
Okay. I thought so. Thank you.
All right, you want to jump back to the ARPA document? So I put together for the council, we're not going to go through this whole document. The first part of it is just an overview of what the American Rescue Plan Act is, the eligible uses as set forth by the Treasury guideline. There's 151 pages of that I can't tell you how many times I've been through now. I'm starting to get a little bit of PTSD from it every time I look at it. But I wanted to start looking at the recommendations. And this whole document was based on initial allocation estimates that the city would receive approximately $6.6 million. Monday, we received the final allocation dollars from DOLA, and those numbers are going to be closer to $7.7 million, like $7,725,000. And so just want to lay that out for the council that those funds are coming in from the Treasury to typically be used specifically for the eligible uses that are in that Treasury guideline. Going down through these recommendations, I'm just going to kind of highlight each of these as we go through them, because I think this is important that you can kind of see some of at least the recommendations. And so I'd like to get some council feedback on these, or if there's something else that the council would like to consider. The first part of the eligibility is response to the public health emergency and negative economic impacts. That's the way the guidelines lay it out. And so the recommendations right there, one of the recommendations is improvement to our meeting spaces. Improvements to include audio, video, and in the case of our council chambers, recording, voting, ADA, and agenda management systems to provide for improved access to virtual meetings. One of the things we discovered through this whole pandemic that we were a little bit nervous about, but it turned out to not be a bad thing, is that really we learned how to do virtual meetings, but we also learned that we don't have the ideal software and hardware to do that. And so we want to take the technology that's 1990s technology that it's kind of outdated and struggling, and update that. So you can see that with that we would have it would also include additional systems for hard of hearing. It would include agenda management systems for the clerk's office, a recording system that's easier to work with, a voting system that's easier to work with, a voting system that actually can be transported if the council decides to hold a meeting, as sometimes we have in other locations. For example, the PD, it actually allows for a system that's portable, that can actually move and still provide most, if not all, the capability. And so you can see the council chambers. We also have some improvements to City Hall conference rooms, the Utility Operations Center conference rooms, and the Police Department training room. Again, that'd be the audio, the ADA, and those sorts of systems, total for $138,000. Lexipol, some of you may have heard of Lexipol. Lexipol is a is a company that typically you hear them around police policies. That company provides just top-notch review, scrubbing of your existing police policies, and then recommendations on sort of the best practice police policies that you ought to adopt that keep you out of trouble from a liability standpoint, just to put it simply. We've used Lexipol for a number of years for our police department. It's been a really positive thing. The fire department has similar issues in the need to keep their SOPs and policies updated. They have policies that are very outdated that need to be updated, and just they don't really have the capability. Well, they have obviously the brain power and capability to do it, but as far as the timing goes to update it. So we want to work with Lexipol to get all of our system updated so that we can conform to all the modern firefighting management and liability processes and guidelines. So that's another $33,000. That's a 2-year process to do that. LifePack 15 for our 4th ambulance. I think I have it up there as a 3rd ambulance. It's actually our 4th ambulance. The LifePack, for those that don't know it, monitors vitals and oxygen levels for COVID-19 patients. Cost for the LifePack is $28,000. That's with a trade-in. It's actually more than that, believe it or not. But with the trade-in of our old LifePack, that's that cost of $28,000. ADA OEM prep space for El Paso County Health South. That's up there at the Beckett Event Center. The city really worked hard with them to get El Paso County Health located there, and which also has allowed us some potential community meeting space. We've got some work to do and to pay for it that we agreed to do to get that whole area ADA upgraded, parking, et cetera. So those total costs are about $70,000. Business Impact Assistance Program. We had a good Business Impact Assistance Program that we did with the first round of the CARES dollars. And we just really want to put it out there, put more funds out there again for small businesses in our community who may have been impacted. This is that micro grant program that they can apply for and get up to $15,000 for local businesses. So yes, sir.
On that one, so if they've already received funds in the past, can they go ahead again?
Yes, they could. Absolutely. Yeah. If they couldn't receive funds for the exact same stuff, but if they have additional losses or additional costs, then absolutely they could.
Okay.
And there were some businesses who actually they would have qualified for more than the initial 15,000, but that's what our limitation was. So they could definitely come back for those additional costs for sure. Lighten the load utility assistance. So one of the allowances in ARPA is for lost revenues. However, not lost revenues for utilities, with one exception, and that's for utility assistance. And so that's an area where our utility, because of the loss of late fees of almost $500,000 through the fountain utilities, they allocate 11% of which to lighten the load for utility assistance. And so this would put 54,000 back into that program that provides utility assistance for customers who are in need. Revenue losses, I also just want to highlight that one of the things that we continue to look at is we have specific revenue line items within the general fund that definitely saw a loss due to COVID and due to the pandemic. However, when you're calculating the revenue loss under ARPA, you don't do it per line item, you do it as the overall general fund altogether. And so overall, our revenues actually increased because of the dramatic increase, unexpected increase in sales taxes. That really has improved our standing there. So we likely won't be able to apply for revenue loss, not apply for, but apply any of these funds to revenue losses, with the exception of if there were any, and I'm not saying we have any, we're still looking, but if there were any areas where we weren't able to complete a project, for example, if we had specific revenues that were supposed to come in for streets, did not come in for streets because of COVID, right, or were reduced, and consequently we had to hold off on specific projects, there is the ability to use some of these dollars for those revenue losses. But it's very targeted on the type of infrastructure it's actually eligible for that. So we're going to continue to review that, but I just want to kind of share that right now, we don't think we will probably have any sort of ability to apply funds towards revenue losses. Premium pay. So one of the things that ARPA points out is, and sort of highlights, is they encourage cities to provide premium slash, you can think of it as hazard pay, for those employees who really spend a lot of time directly interacting with the public. And so specifically, they identify public safety employees, custodial, and transit employees as types of employees that would be eligible for that. Obviously, they go way beyond that. They include nurses and doctors, those kind of things. But specific to the types of employees we have, those would be the 3 different classes that would be eligible. And so this is at least recommending the possibility of $1,000 retroactive hazard pay bonuses to our uniformed public safety personnel, custodial staff, and our transit employees who spend a lot of time interacting with the public out there and trying to stay healthy. This actually, the premium pay allows for an increase in the dollars per hour worked, actually to their wages. However, just to for simplicity and to keep the costs under control, the recommendation is to do a $1,000 bonus for those. Water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, and I could also include stormwater to that as well. Those are eligible expenditures that could be used for the ARPA funds. As the council knows, we've had discussions around the water infrastructure need. Ms. Beckett mentioned that today as well. And there is a project that we really would like to implement that would allow us to take full advantage of our FEA, our Fountain Valley Authority pipe, and the SDS water that we have. And that equates to about a $5 million project that would take a water line underneath I-25, connect up to the tank up there, a larger water line, in partnership with some developers as well, and allow us to connect to that. If there are any questions on that, by the way, Dan's here as well. He can answer any of that specifically. I try to provide some detailed information there and at least give you a pretty good overview of that. Then we also have stormwater improvements, and I know we have actually a number of stormwater needs, but probably the biggest is if the council remembers, we've talked about this in the past, on Darneel, we think it's just spring water that's come up underneath the ground, and probably, I mean, I can't speak to that, but likely because of the houses that were built there and the developer that didn't install any sort of stormwater drain that the houses be directly piped to. That's allowed that spring water then just trickle down the streets constantly, and it's been eroding our roads, eroding the sidewalks, creating problems for the homeowners there. And so that Darneel number would hopefully get us taken care of with the Darneel project. To be honest with you, we think that project's probably closer to 1.1 million. But when I was trying to work this into the $6.6 million budget, that's a number that I had available. So I'm plugging in there at least for recommendation. And another stormwater improvements about 116,000. So that's what got us to the 6.6. And then DOLA let us know, oh, it's really going to be 7.7. So I provided let's see, didn't hand this out. Let me hand this out now. I meant to hand this out before the meeting, but this is an addition, kind of a supplement to that document you have right now that provides at least some other recommendations. I want to start off by saying that these still need some work to vet to make sure that they truly do comport with the requirements of the ARPA funds. But this is at least based on discussions we had just this morning on some possibilities for the council to consider. So and remember, this actually comes to us in 2 different tranches, 2 different amounts over 2 years. So you'll receive about 3.8 million sometime in the next 30 days, and then a year from now, another 3.8 million. So one recommendation, one thought at least, was funding of the ADA improvements to 101 North Main to get that ramp fully ADA compliant and get that building fully ADA compliant. Additional EMS equipment to replace old life packs and gurneys for the fire department. Our life packs and gurneys are at the end of life there, and that's been a real challenge that we've been talking about for a while to try to figure out how do we tackle those costs. Those costs are about $300,000. That's no small number. I just found out today, Chief was educating me a little bit, a gurney, $35,000. Now he can get those, he can work, yeah, it's sort of shocking how much a gurney costs. He obviously, that's the full price. We think we can get those cheaper. And so those numbers actually at the time I put this together were 300,000. It's really closer to 200, was it 26,000? Yeah. But just to give you an idea, those are life packs for all of our ambulances, other than the one that I already mentioned earlier. And our fire trucks. Our fire trucks carry those life packs as well, and the gurneys for our ambulances. Pay for increased cost of parks building. So we have a parks building that it's really sort of a metal shed with some office space in it. Not really much office space, but really to house all the parks gear that we're looking at paying for with insurance funds, right? Was it insurance funds, Sylvia? Okay. However, due to a delay because of COVID, we think those costs have probably gone up. We don't know yet because we haven't bid them, but that would be potential. That would be a potential eligible use of funds. If there was a project you could not do due to COVID, you can do it now. You can't pay for the whole amount with the ARPA funds, but you can pay for that change in the cost, right? So that I put that down there just to put it on your radar that still needs to be determined what that possibly might be. There are similar issues that we had in moving our recreation folks into the Metcalf building. That Metcalf where the over by the baseball field, we're moving our recreation folks into that. That's costing about $5,000 more than anticipated. So that's a much smaller project, but it's again additional costs. And then we threw this in here, and this is really just a number for the council to think about. But you know, we have that issue on Southmore due to all the additional stormwater that's coming down Fountain Creek, and it's caused a lot more erosion. So consequently, created a shutdown of Southmore, and so that's an area where I'm not sure if these funds really help us there. But if Fountain Creek Watershed District was able to come up with some sort of funding, and we were able to put some dollars towards it as well, then you could potentially put $1 million towards a project like that, and maybe leverage those dollars with some other dollars that the Watershed District can come up with. We can't use this as federal grant matches, but we can use them as matches for other types of funds. Okay, so I've got all this down in front of you, but I just want to kind of remind you that this doesn't need to be decided tonight. I mean, there are certain things we would really like to get some direction on. For example, should we be looking at using some of those funds moving forward for the water project? That's by far the lion's share of those dollars. And that's a huge need, and that's a pretty immediate need if we're going to start working on the engineering and getting that process going. However, you know, this really comes over 2 years, and we have to have the dollar spent by 2026. So there isn't a rush to decide, man, we absolutely need to be putting money aside for Southmore or, you know, for whatever these things are. There are a few areas that definitely are more timely than others, but I just want to get it in front of you because you have time. Again, 3.8 million will come in this year, another 3.8 12 months from now. We have to have decided what we're going to do with those funds by 2024 and actually have them spent by 2026. So there's plenty of time. I don't want the council to feel rushed, but I just want to give an idea of the types of potential uses and potential recommendations. And if the council has other ideas of things that you would want us to look into and consider, I may not have the answer I may have the answer tonight. I may not. It may be something that's a little unique, and I need to delve into the Treasury guidelines again. But that's definitely something that we'll do. We can dig in and try to find some answers for you as well. So I'd like to kind of get your feedback on those ARPA thoughts, the recommendations, and just, you know, kind of see where you're at with that.
So on the ARPA, that any chance we get more?
No.
Or this is it?
This is it.
This is it.
The funds have actually been sent to the state. I think it was May 27th. Okay. So they have the funds now. We actually submitted our application today. I think I got like 30. They had some glitch in their system. I think you did too, Mayor. We got like 30 receipts, notifications that we got it, which was nice.
Well, at least they got it. Right?
At least we know they got it. Yeah. So it's applied for, and they have to provide the funds by law within 30 days. And so no, there won't be any change to those dollars.
Okay. And then on some of those that are kind of more estimate versus real cost, what happens if we get into a project, or let's say it's part of the 3 point whatever million next year that we've kind of committed those funds, but then all of a sudden, as what's going on right now, the costs go up. How does that work?
So
do we have to eat that, the difference, or how does that?
So if, for example, if we had a project that we contracted for a building, for example, and it was $500,000, that's the dollar that we would pay. So what we would have right now is these are, like you said, these are estimates for the most part. Even the $5 million project right now is an estimate. They would need to work on and get the exact dollars, but we need some sort of tentative direction from the council of, yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing to do. And I'm just going to use the water project as an example. If that's an area that the council says, yeah, please kind of continue forward with that. We'll continue, we'll do the engineering, we'll go out to bid, we'll get ideas of the cost, and then we will actually have hard numbers before we pull the trigger on anything.
Okay.
That makes sense. We want to have hard numbers before we pull those triggers.
Yeah. The one that really stands out for me that I think we need to definitely, well, a couple of them, prioritize are both the water projects, the Darnell project. That's been going on for years, and that's going to keep eating our budget away, having to refix that road every single year. And if we can get that finally taken care of, where that's not an issue anymore, I think that would be good for our infrastructure. And then this is an issue we're going to have, and in getting that water moved from the other side of the interstate to here, and yeah, and then I guess the other one would be the stormwater for Southmore. If we have to use that by a certain time, and look how long it's taken us, we've gotten nowhere in finding anything. That we've got to put a time limit on when we can. Okay, we're not going to be able to use that as a match. Then where can we apply it otherwise?
Right.
If that makes sense. That's just my initial 2 cents right now. Everything else to me looks pretty doable, and it's, this is one of those things we got to take advantage of the extra money to and for public, we're really confined as to what we can use this money for. So we can't use it for roads, we can't use it for those types of things, and so it's as Scott said, the Treasury Department's really laid it out. I was surprised they threw in like water and stormwater and those types of things. So if we can utilize it for those things, and it's allowable, and let's these are some of those projects that we've been struggling to figure out how we're going to pay for and get them to be funded. So I'm excited that we can actually maybe make some movement on some of our problem areas and things. So again, I think the rest of the list, I do like the small business grant again, if we can definitely provide that and get that going again, as well as that hazard pay, because those folks were in the middle of it and no vaccine, nothing else, and they're responding to how many calls a day, COVID related in the beginning. So I think, for their peace of mind and what they've done as well. So that's just, again, my 2 cents. What about anybody else?
And if there's anything we're missing here too, that you think, oh, what about this? Yeah, let us know.
And Mayor,
Okay.
to your comment, just to keep expectations realistic on this, even with that type of money going to the Southmore project, when Greg and I have been discussing that with the watershed district, that's only about maybe 25% of that project. And they have been using numbers that they wanted us to pay 70% of that project. So I don't want anybody to think, hey, there's a real chance that even with that $1 million that could occur, because we've still got a huge nexus of money of separation.
There's a big gap.
Yeah, big gap.
All right, Mr. Geek.
Yeah, I've got a question on the PPE that you guys, the public safety people are using. Are you still full deal, the whole 9 yards, or are we backed off on some of that?
Sam, the general statement is as the city, state, counties progress down, we've progressed down. But, also when we're told or suspect we go inside homes, then we ramp it back up to protect our staff.
Okay, so then the losses, are there any losses with that?
As far as the equipment, how much we purchased?
Yeah.
We purchased a lot of it with a $30,000 grant we received early in the year, and that grant has provided a lot of the equipment for the fire department and the police department. So that's one of the things we looked at with Scott. I've seen we could recoup some things, but if I'm honest, and Shauna worked with us on that grant, that even included cleaning buildings during COVID, city hall, police department, fire department, vehicles. We're pretty confident that that grant helped us do that. Shauna, is that accurate?
Okay. And we've got 4 ambulances now that we're trying to man?
So we actually have 2 staffed every day with a 3rd on demand. And then we have PPIR that's happening almost every weekend. So it's often that we do have all of them deployed.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? Did Ms. Thompson have anything? Is she still on?
Councilmember Thompson?
No questions right now, but I would like to reserve time to be able to go over this with staff maybe later this week before we make any final decisions, since I can't see any of the documents. Thank you.
Yep, and in regards to that, this will come back kind of more for.
I really wanted to ask the council, really, how you want to move forward with this. Do you want us to set up a separate meeting? Do you want us to come back at a council meeting with some sort of formal action? How's the council? What's the preference for the council?
And are we talking about the entire discussion tonight or just funds, ARPA funds?
As far as the ARPA fund goes, so just that piece of it, does the council want us to bring back something that you can actually take formal action on?
I think so. I think that'll help solidify for us, this is exactly where that's going to go, I think, for public as well. So they know, we'll talk about it and then, be able to make a decision that I think will be down on paper. And
okay, sounds good.
I think that sounds okay.
We'll do that.
Okay. So I don't see any of the council lights on right now. Any public want to have any comment on this? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
I'm Audrey Beckett. I had a question. I know how important streets are. I know we can't use the ARPA fund for streets, but can we take some other items that would fall under ARPA that are in your normal budget and move those to the ARPA funds so that you had more money in your regular budget to do streets?
That's a great question. That was actually one of the first things we looked at, actually, to see if there's something we could do. Like, they actually have some very specific language around that because they know that with all the trillions of dollars they're handing out, there are likely cities that would be doing that. Right. And then looking at, are there different ways to use these monies to be a little bit more fungible and movable? And unfortunately, we're really restricted. Yeah. No. Right. Yeah. That was one of the first things that I was looking for through the document. Yeah.
Gordon Rick, couple of things. Chief Maxim, we recently upgraded Fire Station 2, did a lot of improvements, and one of the improvements we did was to the sleeping areas. Do we need to do that to Fire Station 3 for the sleeping areas? It seems like to me we should be able to use the ARPA if we're talking about separating sleep areas so that people aren't cross-contaminating each other. Do we need to do that to Station 3?
It is in our long range plans to do that at station number 1 and 3. And what we've kind of talked about doing is very preliminary, is doing that in the next strategic plan in years 3 and 4. But yes, the need is there.
If we could try to figure out if we can use the ARPA funds for that.
Yeah, I didn't look specifically for that. That seems like something that that there would be flexibility to do. Yeah, so that'd be something that'd be worth exploring.
Okay. The mayor talked about, what if we come in next year and the estimates are higher and the costs go out of control. Next year, if we got 10 projects and project 5 comes in over budget, can we cancel project 1 to move it to 5 if council deems that more important?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, again, because the timing of the funds, likely the council, the city wouldn't want to really appropriate funds for some of those projects that would be in the future anyway, or some of the equipment purchases, right? I mean, maybe right now we think the life packs and gurneys are going to be $226 and they end up being $250, a year from now. So yeah, absolutely. This isn't anything where we create a list, we make an order right now and it's sort of locked in. But it's to give us an idea of kind of the intent where the council wants to go. And so that we can start working on planning and plugging some of these things over the next couple of years. But yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of flexibility with that.
Todd, our transit workers, what's the safety like for our drivers as far as contaminating the air? Do we have something other than just a hanging sheet of plastic there? Is there something out there commercially that we could purchase long-term to make our transit workers safe?
You know, our fleet guys, because we consistently lease new and they're coming in, they're looking at that right now. Some of the stuff that we looked that wasn't designed for COVID, it kind of prohibited them any ability to interact with the riders. So we didn't go with that, but we did put plexiglass around them. So our guys are still looking for it. I don't think anything's out on the market yet.
Okay.
If it is, we're going to take a look at it.
But in addition to that, we did put applications. I can't remember the name of that application. There was applications that we put on.
We put spray applications over every bus internally. And, you know, the nice thing was our transit drivers, and we got a retired transit driver back here, so he can attest to it. But most of our folks are higher in age, and they worked through this entire pandemic, and we didn't have any of them that came up positive. So we tried to hit it hard, fast, and give them what they needed, and so far we've been lucky.
And then the last thing, Scott,
Yes,
you
sir.
talked about Tabor and the possibility of us having to offer a refund or asking to keep the money.
Yeah.
If we're going to ask to keep the money, we probably want to come up with something really specific we want to use it for. If we just go say, hey, let us keep the money.
No, agreed 100%. And that would be a conversation that the council next year will be able to have. I mean, that would be the 2022 council that would be discussing what that would be. And if they wanted to do that at all, or if they just wanted to refund it. But you're 100% right. I'd agree with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the items for tonight?
Okay, so just clarification for me then. I will bring something back a little bit more formalized for the council to approve. It sounds like there weren't really any major red flag kind of things to modify. I want to explore that station idea a little bit, so we'll get a little bit more information on that if we could.
Okay, I think that's a good one to look at. And then, so again, council, Sharon's going to look at this later this week to make sure she's okay with everything. Any red flag for you guys? You guys good with what's on here? I want to make sure Scott feels comfortable enough that he can move forward. So,
and we'll meet with Councilmember Thompson as well to go through this specifically.
Okay, Ms. Duncan, go ahead.
I don't have any red flags. I just when you went through the personnel needs for and you use the engineering.
Yes. Yes.
So are these examples or
we are specifically, the department specifically requested an engineering inspector, a code enforcement, moving one of our part-time personnel to full-time, a benefit and leave specialist for human resources, and a police officer one. Now we will be coming back, as I mentioned, Chief Heber will be coming back at the next council meeting to talk about 3 police officers this year with that additional funding coming in. And so when we looked at our budget, we couldn't justify making recommendations to add more bodies when it would put us in the red even more. Does that make sense? So we didn't, so although I wanted to make sure that I communicated to you that the departments are looking at those as potential needs, we couldn't actually make that recommendation because of where we are in the budget. Now, that being said, as we get deeper into this year, this is really a checkpoint. But as we get later on in the year, I know I just briefly mentioned that, for example, our sales taxes are up. What you see in the budget, right? Everything that we've looked at as far as the numbers go, were projected last year. So as we dig in and as we start getting the actuals, right, then we're going to see that some of those revenues are quite a bit higher. And so we'll be able to come back and like in our August meeting or September, we may be able to say, hey, you know what, we do, our revenues really did look a lot better. And maybe our expenditures, we actually made some changes there. And so council, maybe that gives you a little bit more room to say, you know, maybe we do need that police officer, or maybe we do need that, you know, inspector or code, whatever that position is. So we're going to keep that on your radar. I just wanted to get it in front of you first right now, just to give you an idea. But we will refine these numbers as we get more projections, particularly on revenues. Because these are the revenues. Remember, we projected them, last year. So when we were working on the 21 and 22 budgets. So those numbers will likely change, and we're seeing them change, particularly with sales taxes. Well, yeah, and even property taxes, obviously, because the way the laws have changed, right? Okay, yeah, happy to do that. But back on the budget piece of that, are there any comments, questions around that the council, anything in particular? Are you guys comfortable waiting as we're working on the strategic plan so we can try to sync those conversations?
For me, it's the, you keep calling it a merit pay, but I'm going to call it a cost of living adjustment for our employees. And you said for every 1% we would designate, it would be 182,000. What's the current cost of living adjustment? What's the term? I forgot what they used to call it. Cost of living, I guess.
COLA?
The increase. Yeah, the COLA. What is it currently?
I haven't looked. I haven't seen what other cities are doing. I haven't looked at what the Denver
Boulder. It's a Denver
Boulder.
yeah.
What we've been going off of. Yeah.
Okay. I'd be interested in making sure that we can at least provide something for the employees. Cost of living, if it's, just the bare minimum, at least with those tax bills that came out for everybody, and not the tax bills, but our assessments or whatever, everyone's having to pay more and those things. So,
We'll
whether it's
that.
1%, 2%, I don't know on that one. If anybody has a strong opinion, if maybe you don't have an opinion on it and don't like the idea, but want to at least throw that out there for discussion.
I think it's at least 25%.
Yeah.
Sounds like a money man to me.
Finance guy said, showing us, see, look at that.
I'll track that down and get
Okay,
that number to
just
the
kind
council.
of see what that looks
Okay,
like across
will
the
do.
board.
Absolutely. I'll track that down.
And then I think as far as the rest of that, it's interesting to see that our numbers are still coming in very positive.
Yeah.
A
lot of online shopping happening.
Yeah, and that's one of the greatest things that the legislature has done in the recent past. So, yeah, I'm encouraged by that. Anybody else?
All right. So you want us to jump into the water and electric? You
Sure.
good with that? Okay. Dan, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have a slide we can put up? Whoever's doing that. Thank you. Might be number 7, maybe. We'll start this evening with the water fund, and I'd like to open up with a statement about the net position of the water fund. And over several years, the water fund has been on a negative annual change in net position trend. And simply what that means is that over several years, the expenditures in the water fund have been greater than the revenues in the water fund. And so my number one water fund fiscal management objective is to reverse that trend. As you can see, based on our original budget for 2021 and 2022, as you work your way to the bottom, there is a note that says increase or decrease in net position. And in both 2021 and 2022, you see a positive increase in net position. However, if you look beyond that, you also see that principal payments on debt are not included in that. And so that's the debt that the water fund has taken on in the last decade has been pretty significant, and it's certainly been partially attributable to the decrease in net position that has occurred on an annual basis. And so with that focus, what we're doing is we're taking a much closer look at our expenditures on a daily basis. We're trying to gather as much information, financial information as we can, so that we are managing those expenditures as prudently as possible. We're also working on the revenue side, and I can tell you that for this current fiscal year, 2021, that what you see there, like Scott had mentioned, are the projections that we made last fall when we put this budget together. And I can tell you that for sure there's a couple of significant revenues or increases in revenues that will occur in this year that are not reflective up there. I think we reported recently that under other operating income, and that's typically one-time type incomes that don't repeat year after year. We had got agreement from the Air Force to pay for the building at Aga Park. That was something that was not in the original agreement, and that will increase that other operating income to the tune of almost $1.5 million. We're also with the rush on water taps. We're seeing projects as they get to their completion of the entitlement process. We're allocating those taps on a first come first served basis. But in order to basically reserve those taps, developers are purchasing those in advance. And so once they get past that threshold of meeting all of the entitlement requirements, so we're going to see a pretty significant increase in 2021 on the development proceeds line item too. And as I also said, we're very proactively managing in our expenses. We're really ratcheting down on those, making sure that all expenditures are absolutely necessary. And so I'm anticipating that in 2021 that we will see the actual expenditures being less than what we had projected. So when you put all that together, we are showing an increase in net position. However, you still have to deduct off the principal payments on the debt. And so in 2021, with what you're looking at up there, we would actually end up going in the hole because of the principal payments. But based on the increase in revenues and decrease in expenditures, I'm very confident that we will end up in 2021 in a positive position, in a positive net position, or an increase in our net position in the water fund. And then we will continue on that in 2022. You do see that the revenues in 2022 are less. That's primarily attributable to those one-time incomes that we're getting in 2021 that we don't anticipate in getting in 2022. But you also see a pretty significant reduction in proposed expenditures in 2022. We do not at this time have any significant changes to what is proposed in 2022. But when you look at the bottom line there, we have an increase in net position of 1.5 or almost 1.6 million. After you deduct the principal payments for the debt from that, we have a net gain of about $300,000, a little over $300,000 in the water fund. So I'm anticipating that for both 2021 and 2022, we will achieve our objective of reversing the trend of having a negative cash position on an annual basis in the water fund. So before I move on to electric, are there any questions? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to electric. Electric fund is in a traditionally been in a much better position. We don't have any significant changes. You can see that the charges for service from fiscal year 21 to 22, there's an increase of about $1.5 million, and that's attributable to the 4% increase. when we did the last rate study, the council approved two-step increase, so one in January 1st of 2021, and then the second in January 1st of 2022. There were specific projects that we had identified those for, and we're still working on refining those. So we're not necessarily spending that money, but it is being retained in the as a increase in our net position, so that we will have that money available for those projects once we have refined them. We're continuing to work on, and then the primary project is the second interconnection to the bulk transmission system, and we continue to work with Colorado Springs Utilities on that particular project. We've also heard that there may be a regional transmission organization that's that this area may be joining, and that will change things definitely to our favor. So we're hoping that the Colorado Springs Utilities will transition into the Southwest Power Pool. Does that mean my time's up? Sorry.
Yeah, fire chief just buzzed you, dude.
Oh, okay. I got gonged.
Got gonged
I
by the
got
fire
gonged.
chief.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll turn this power back on at the station. Get done here.
Well played too, sir.
You're gonna make us run the generator, huh?
Oh, okay. But the electric fund is in good shape, and so if you have any questions there, I don't have any notable changes for what was originally proposed for 2022.
Is that it?
That'd
Okay.
be it.
Any questions for Mr. Blankenship on our utilities? Seems pretty straightforward. Anybody public? All right, go ahead, Scott.
All right, Mr. Mayor, now our next review would be John. He will go through all the miscellaneous funds. That'll be on that last page that you have.
Good evening, everybody. John Lewis, Finance Director. I'll go through these miscellaneous funds quickly. They're all in very stable and good cash position, and with the exception of the ambulance fund. And the way we've put this together, and I know it's difficult to read the numbers, so I'll go through kind of the big picture. We started with the unrestricted cash balance from the audited figures as of 12/31/2020, added the 21 forecasted revenue and 21 budgeted expenses to show an decrease in reserves, and then added the 22 forecasted revenue and proposed expenses and the resulting increase or decrease in reserves for each of the funds. Nothing has changed from the budget that you reviewed for both years back in the fall. And here's where we're ending up. The final column over there, estimated unrestricted cash balance as of 12/31/2022. We have zero for the ambulance fund. The good news is that we found a way to decrease the transfer from the general fund by 126,000. At times that's been above 500,000. We have decreased it quite substantially. And when I say we, it's really because of the work that Chief Maxon has done in finding better revenues sources and collections in the ambulance fund. The drainage fund, we budget 200,000 every year, but we really haven't been spending any of that. We've got 1,136,520 that we'll have as far as cash as of the end of 2022. Conservation Trust, we were real conservative with the revenues. We'll probably have stronger revenues than what we have projected. And after the $211,090 carry forward that we had from 2020 and the 40,000 approved in the first supplemental, the 40,000 net, we still are projecting conservatively 208,828 of cash at the end of 2022 in the Conservation Trust Fund. Heritage Maintenance District will have 555,245. Volunteer Fire Fund, even after the 30,500 in the first supplemental this year, it should end up with over $83,000 as of 2022. General Improvement District number 1, nothing has ever been spent out of that. We have 1,013,027. The first, I think it's 1.2 million needs to be spent on public safety. So we're still saving up to get to that point. GID number 2, 411,763. Almost 50% of that could go to the water fund to help pay for certain capital items according to the way that was set up. The insurance fund is projected to have 3.4 million left over at the end of 2022, but that really is an estimate. It's difficult to project each year how much we're really going to have. We're self-insured, and as an example, the initial budget for 2020 was 3.7 million, and we ended up spending 4.8 million. The year before, it was quite a bit less. So I think we're conservative there and still in good shape. We started out with 2.8 million in as of the end of 2020, and we think we'll have about 3.4 million by the end of 2022. Volunteer fire pension, 695,724. Our volunteer fire pension is in very healthy shape. And of course, that can't be spent on anything other than volunteer fire pension. Public transportation is in very healthy shape. We had an 86,000 carry forward, and in spite of that, we're still going to end up with 1.9 million by the end of 2022. And again, that is the transit department that is funded by a portion of the sales tax. Another fund that is funded by a portion of the sales tax is street resurfacing. And even after the 225,000 first supplemental and 100,000 second supplemental, which means we'll be doing 525,000 of street resurfacing this year, we'll still end up with at least $400,000 by the end of 2022. Last but not least, street capital improvements, which was funded by sales tax, but voters did not want to continue that tax. And we have a $1,002,000 carry forward to work on the Indiana project this year. And that will still leave us with 180,000 left over in 2022. So with that, are there any questions on any of these miscellaneous funds?
I have a question.
Sure.
Ed?
I think I heard you say that in the streets area, by everything said and done, there'll be an extra $400,000 left.
We will have that by the end of 2022. The end.
2022. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And that's with only a $330,000 proposed expenditure in 2022. If sales taxes come in higher, we'll be able to increase that. But as comparison, we have 525,000 budgeted this year.
Okay, because as we've all seen, materials are just going up exponentially ridiculous. So if there's a way we could even put part of that money into the streets department to get something done before it, gets even higher, then I'd like to do that. So.
Agreed. And as you know, sales tax comes in all year, but we have to budget the projects about this time of year and have them done by, I think it's September is what our street superintendent indicated. So we should end up with a couple $100,000 by the end of this year, and then it depends on revenue for the following year. So we may be able to increase that budget for 2022. We'll know more in the next couple months. And then of course that would decrease that remaining cash balance at the end of 2022. Did that make sense?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on these items from council? Oh, Ms. Duncan, sorry.
So on the public transportation, the unrestricted cash balance. I guess explain to me because I'm new, the 86,000 carry forward is from where?
The 86,000 carry forward was from 2020 to this year, 2021. You did approve that carry forward. And even though that 86,000 is included in here. So after that, and then normal forecasted revenues and budget expenses, we are still anticipating that we'll have 1.9 million left over by the end of 2022.
If I remember right, teacher, I think that carryover might have been for our bus stop improvements that we're doing.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that's what she says.
Okay, real quick, any questions from public?
In the main budget that you first put up for street improvement, it looked like it was about 2.4 million that you had for street improvement. So there must be a lot of other things in street improvement.
Good question.
In that first slide.
Where's one with a 1.8?
Yeah, that's for streets in the general fund.
Streets in the general fund.
So that includes everything. That's salaries, benefits, equipment. Not just streets. That's everything.
Okay, and then this is just
Street
streets.
resurfacing.
Those are the two that come in from moving forward funds. which
Okay.
Continue to come in on resurfacing. And then the other million is what we have and that we're attempting to complete the other moving forward projects. So two totally separate budgets.
Two's totally separate. Okay.
Okay, Scott, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We actually had time set aside for the council to make comments, but I know we've been pausing along the way to give the council ample opportunity to ask questions and comments. But really at this point, we've wrapped up what we needed to and just want to leave it open if there's any last minute comments, questions, thoughts you wanted to share with us moving forward.
No, considering where we've been in the last year and a half and where we're going, we're very fortunate in the way we've managed the budget and moving forward in these projects. And even with some of the big things that have come up out of the blue, we're able to, other than Southmore, sorry, but we're able to do those things. But things like Chief Maxon and just the stuff he brought in and looking at our budget and really, a whole new way of thinking and dealing with the money in the fire department. And it's places that we've not been able to go to with those sort of things. So, we're appreciative of that, Chief. And, just, I think as we move forward with the online sales and how those occur and how we've been able to utilize that, which has been great. I was telling someone the other day, they're not even from here. They were just asking. And, I said, we typically have leakage that goes to the springs. It always has. And with, the advent of Amazon and eBay and all those, it's really come to the save the day for us. So
How does that affect us as far as David?
Is the ARPA funds or the ARPA funds won't affect us at all, because if you remember, federal funds, grant funds they don't go in our table calculation at all. But additional revenues would, like sales tax revenues. So that's one thing that we're really going to want to be watching fairly closely, is as great as it is that those sales tax revenues are coming in and can help with providing these services to our citizens. At the end of the day, we will potentially bump up against our Tabor limit, and then the next council, because we'll be having that conversation next year, would be needing to decide what they want to do. Do they want to provide a refund? Do they want to go to the voters and decide if they want to allow the city to keep the funds for something? Maybe it's a park project or what streets or whatever. So yeah, well, that's something that John, oh boy, earlier in the year, he came to the council and provided sort of some projections on where he thought we were going to be as far as Tabor goes. And right now we're at the point where we're kind of at the cusp of getting close to meeting that Tabor limit. So we're going to be watching that, monitoring that very closely, because we're projecting ourselves going into a Tabor refund situation fairly quickly, particularly if the revenues keep coming in as high as they are. So we have to monitor that. Does that answer your question this week? Okay.
What about us tabering?
Yeah, so that would be a conversation that we've talked about that at a number of council retreats and other workshops. That would be a policy decision. If the council wanted to decide to move that down that path, then there's a process that we would do that, would take it to the voters and ask them what they want to do with that. There'd be a lot of work, a lot of education, a lot of our own information to try to put together to sort of determine what exactly that means, so our voters have some information on that.
And hasn't there been in the last couple of elections where it's gone statewide that they want to at least push something forward to detabor?
Yeah, there was an item in last year's election that highlighted that. And I don't remember the details of how the vote ended up.
No, they Gallagher did.
They did do that, but there was some discussions early on about detabering altogether.
Okay. They're good. The good things are to tabering, like asking voters for tax increases, those types of things. The financial impact on this end of it, I think that's what most communities are wanting to get rid of is that piece, because it really puts cities in a bind. And then you have to all of a sudden save money because you have to ratchet back or do whatever you have to do. That's where those shortfalls really come into play. So next council, if that's something you want to look at. I don't know. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? So this will be coming back.
I believe it's September 8th, we would be delivering. Based on our draft calendar, on September 8th, we'll be delivering a draft budget document to City Council. And we would have a work session at that point on September 15th. We have scheduled a budget work session with you to discuss the 2022 budget. Between then and now, a lot of things will be going on, particularly meeting with departments, making sure that they don't have any big changes. And of course, the strategic plan meeting and work sessions that you'll have with John Trilch and Scott and Todd and others to discuss more about your priorities. And then we'll, before we bring a draft budget to you, we will synchronize those priorities from your strategic plan with what we're trying to put together for the budget.
Okay. Just an FYI, I know the flu wasn't going around this last year, but I think I'll have the flu on those nights. All right.
Please pick up, please escort.
Okay, thanks. All right, with that, we will think. Okay, with that, we will move on. Item 10, correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. I'll start with Mr. Schreiner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you guys have probably heard enough from me tonight, so I don't have anything new.
All right, thank you. Mr. Evans.
Last council, I expressed frustration at our Indiana project that we had not been able to get off the snide with BNSF's legal department for up to a year. Well, we got approval a few days after that meeting from their legal department. So now we move, you can't get any of the CDOT approvals, which we need for the new Indiana intersection, but they have been involved in this entire process. So we're not anticipating any issues with CDOT. So now we move forward to CDOT to get the final right of way and those intersection plans approved. So realistically, what we see, we will spend the rest of the summer and early fall getting those approvals. It doesn't make any sense logistically to start construction over there, let's say in August or September, and then stop it when winter hits. So reasonably, we can see we'll get all of those approvals in place and we'll start to see dirt moved on the Indiana crossing as well as the CDOT intersection next spring with the goal of completing it next year. So that's a big project for the south end of the city and really for the entire city. If we can get that southern interstate traffic to be able to turn right and head to the southern part of the city off of Old Pueblo. Sir.
Yeah, I was wondering the railroad crossing itself. Now, what's the deal there? We can build the road up to each side of it. And then is there going to be a snag on that whenever they have a crew that happens to come from another state and build it, or how?
I'm sure there will be, yes, absolutely.
So we'll be set
Yes,
there.
realistically, absolutely. As we saw in Duckwood, there will be. Yeah. Yeah, we'll work through it the best we can. But we're hoping if we can get started early enough next spring, because we're not looking at the distances that we were talking about at Duckwood, but that will be an issue that we know we'll deal with the railroads. But get it done next year. And then, of course, we will be shutting down Illinois at that point. And that will no longer be a through road from 85 to Maine down here.
So it'll be like Duckwood and Mesa Road, that once the one's open, then we close the other one.
Correct. Okay. Yes. So good news, anytime you see progress, when you're talking about those bureaucracies, it's a good thing. So that's hopefully we can keep pushing it. And we've got some good news that we'll follow up budget wise on a possibility of a good grant for the Link Road. So we'll be moving forward with that because we have a match on that as well. So we'll be talking to everybody about that, but that would be a big one if we were able to do that as well.
Chief Maxon.
So we'll continue to work on the fireworks and keeping our community safe. And it's good to be back here in person. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming back. And so just as a reiterate, as much as everybody loves fireworks, we just got to be safe and know that the thing we've always dealt with here in Fountain is the county has always allowed them. And so everyone just assumed that, because a lot of people don't realize, especially if you're new, that, the Whitefield shopping area, a lot of people think that's Fountain or whatever, but that's really county. So they were able to sell in the county, but they're not going to be sold anywhere in the county. And so if people are going to have them, they've either had them from last year or they've gone up to Wyoming. So just know that we are going to be out enforcing as best as we can. We're still going to have to deal with it, but I think knowing that the enforcement's going to be out there, hopefully we'll see what happens, but hopefully have a better year. Thanks for staying on top of that with the county and all those folks as well. All right, Chief Heber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I'll spend most of my time talking to you in a couple of weeks and just giving you a laydown on public safety requests. Obviously in our community, whether you follow us on Facebook or just read the news, the world we're living in is becoming more dangerous. Some of the people that are out there are more dangerous. And so we have some concerns, and we have some funding streams to deal with that, both for the firefighters and the police officers. So I look forward to that. Thank you for your comments on Don Kling. Don Kling, I just want to highlight Don. Every year when we do our Red and Blue Santa, he has probably been the single driver behind that has gone out and either got donations in excess of $10,000 or at times takes money out of his own pocket. He calls it the Retired First Sergeant Fund. So then I'm glad Chief Evans ain't the chief no more. So I go out of the retired colonel's pocket and put it in Don's pocket. But exactly. So he is the epitome of a community service officer, of what community service and selfless service is. So the fact that he was recognized at the state level, that's why I blew it. I shouldn't have told anybody. They didn't tell me that. But truly, we were just so excited, especially at SRO, because there was probably 15 other police officers that had heroic life-saving stories. But this year they chose to recognize a true public and community servant. Also good news I want to highlight is the reflag of Senate Bill 62, the jail management population bill, was reflagged when it was defeated by Senator Lee to 273, and it was narrowly defeated yesterday by 1 vote. So that's important for our citizens to know. That bill would have made severe felonies and at moderate felonies 4, 5, and 6, and all misdemeanors. We couldn't even book them. We couldn't take them to jail. So Penny, you could call me. You could have some bad things go on your shop, and people be hurt, and your vehicle stolen, and we wouldn't be able to take them to jail. That was going to be the impact of that bill if it was passed. And a lot of our citizens don't know that. It was narrowly defeated, and to highlight that, which is very good for us, it's very good this year, but there's no doubt in my mind it'll be back next year. And individuals at the police officers, this is the highlight of the criminal justice system right now. This is the guy we started pursuing on Sunday when he pulled out his pistol and pointed it at our police officers 4 times in a vehicle. We felt there was a credible threat that he would kill somebody in public safety, so we ended the pursuit. He was currently out on bail for 2nd-degree murder, currently out on bail, and he has 23 charges and violations of misdemeanors and felonies on his record. So those are the types of individuals we're trying to chase and keep off our streets. So those are some of the things you can't make up. So I look forward to that discussion in the next couple of weeks. And thank you for Dawn. And there was some good news with that bill being defeated. And I just want the citizens to know that the city council stood behind public safety and the citizens. And really the defeat of 273 was a victims' rights bill that we really stood behind our victims of our crimes in our community and made sure they had rights and got fair treatment. So, you know, for everybody from Mr. Mayor to the city council, city staff, and Scott, thank you very much. Okay, citizens 1-1 on that one. Thank you.
Well, in the, you know, good and bad news that as with the normas on Facebook, and I was reading the commentary on one of the news stations about that bill, and just a lot of really stupid comments from people, and I think it's just trying to be heavy-handed police and just really dumb stuff. But that, again, that's kind of the norm for Facebook nowadays. But the good news is well, let me start with the bad news. The bad news is our cops have been really out there dealing with some pretty heavy stuff lately, and it's been bad, really bad stuff that has really gone into the public as well. And I mean, car chases right down at 85, 87, guys pointing guns, and it's gotten really super bad. And it's the bad news, and it's only getting worse. The good news is none of it's originating in Fountain.
Yeah.
It's coming from Pueblo. It's coming through Fountain from the north, the south, whatever, and we're having to deal with it. And so the nature of our world, and when we think about that in the next meeting, and what we need to do to help better prepare our city for keeping the citizens who live here safe, we just need to kind of keep that in mind. That I don't think, and I've said this a bunch of times in the past, that people do not really understand what kind of evil is occurring right here in our own little city on a daily basis now. It used to be every once in a while, but now it's a daily basis, 2 or 3 times a day, and it's true evil, bad people doing bad things, and with the state of the world and where things are going, people just feel like they have carte blanche to do whatever they want, and without any consequences. And when protests and things occur, that it makes things worse. So luckily it was defeated, and thanks to all those who voted against it and push that forward. But it doesn't surprise me if it doesn't come back in a year. So
It'll be back.
I just got to be ready for that. So thanks, Chief, again to everybody in public safety for all the hard work you guys do.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Miss Bailey, anything? I know you're sitting over there. Anything?
Thanks, Mayor. Just 2 quick things. I'd like to share that the next public forum on the EPA Brownfield program will take place next Wednesday virtually. So please go online and connect to that if you're seeking to learn more about the next wave of site nomination processes. So that will be 6 p.m. on the 16th, next Wednesday. On the urban renewal front, I'd like to share that the property upgrade with the egress stair project should be completed by the end of this month. Our door, which has been on supply back order for almost 4 months, physically arrived as of Friday. So we are super glad to finally get that last component improved and completed by the end of this month. So you should see the full revitalization of that upper floor transpire by hopefully 4th of July. That's all I got for you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Mr. Blankenship. Anything further?
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Trilch.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. The only thing I have for this evening is that it's wonderful. We're all here back in person, and we're not wearing our masks, and it's really great. That said, our next council meeting, we will have some representatives from El Paso County Public Health coming to see us to talk about current trends with COVID-19, the way that it's going, and kind of what they what it looks like here in the future. So I would encourage you, if you're curious about that and you have questions for our local health representatives, to come onto the meeting, and you'll get a chance to talk to them about that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dale, anything?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Ms. Huffman.
I have a couple fun things.
Okay.
I just forwarded an email to City Council that has been sent by Gordy McCormick, our recreation coordinator. He is, our recreation department is hosting a Vibes game this coming Saturday, the 12th. They're playing Kansas Ogden Raptors. The tickets are $28 for adults, $19 for kids. It's a full barbecue buffet and VIP treatment there at the Vibes auditorium or stadium. Also, 2 really great things are going to be happening on June 18th. We're going to have our very first movie night in the park. the Trolls World Tour in Metcalf Park, June 18th. Also, that will be the first day that we anticipate opening our brand new skate park in Metcalf Park. So that's all I have.
Cool. And then Miss Lisa, I kind of skipped over you. Do you have anything from IT? Okay, thanks. I'll start with Miss Duncan. Anything further?
I don't have anything other than I fully support our police department coming home and right across from the park, having police outside picking up shells from gunshots last week was really an eye-opener to me. I'm like at my front door. So what would you do without our police protecting us?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Mr. Applegate, Mr. Geek, I'm sorry. Mr. Applegate.
Nothing tonight.
Miss Estes.
I just want to give a reminder to everybody that Fountain does have an app that you can put on your phone. It's called Go Request. And if you have a pothole issue or anything, you can use that. And if you're right at the pothole, it'll GPS you right to it. So it's a great little tool to use for all of our citizens to connect with the city. That's it.
All right, Mr. or Mayor Pro Tem.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Miss Thompson, are you still with us?
I am. I just want to, and Tamara, I can't believe you mentioned potholes because that was on my list too. Thank you. But I was wondering, Mr. Frilch, if there would be a way that we could put on our website and or social media the CDOT number and the streets to report. I know there's a lot of people frustrated with 85 and Mesa Ridge Parkway. We don't handle those, and there is a CDOT pothole number. We're Region 2. And the more people that call in the potholes, the quicker they'll be done. I know I did talk to at the groundbreaking ceremony last week for the MAMSIT project. I did invite them to drive up 85 on their way home and experience some potholes. I noticed today that they were actually fixing some at Fontaine and 85 getting a start. So if you see them on the state highways, please call CDOT and make your voice heard. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. The only thing I have is lately I've been out walking, trying to get some steps in and been in our parks and just trying to remind people that they're everybody's park. And I've seen just a ton of litter, and it's pretty heartbreaking because these are the places where everybody goes and tries to enjoy and instead of picking up your trash and getting it into the trash can, they just let it lay there. And, you know, we have people that go around and clean that up, but that's really not their job. And you know, you say, yeah, it's kids, but you know what, if we're not teaching our kids to respect what we have as well, and then I put the blame on you. And so, you know, just when you're out and about and you're utilizing these public places to really take care of them. And, you know, these are for everybody and not just for you. And these are conversations I have with my own kids and my students, and you know, we want to give back to our community, and the best way to do that is to take care of our community. So just a friendly reminder that if you have trash, get in the trash can. I mean, really, it's not that hard, and we're not here to clean up after you. But other than that, our next meeting is June 22nd, same time, same bat channel, and we are adjourned.